10 years ago, I was in Fort Benning, Georgia, the home of the U.S. Army Infantry, and it was here that I had some of my greatest triumphs, but also where I felt the most broken, soulless, and lonely. And here's where everything starts to go wrong, because the U.S. Army Infantry, their training pipeline, is deeply flawed. There's something broken inside of it, which is just not good for you. And I will explain using an example which they conducted on dogs many decades ago. So what they did is they took these dogs, they separated the dogs into two groups. Let's call it Group A and Group B. They took the Group A dogs, and that was just your control group. So they were just left alone. Group B, though, here's the thing. Group B was just shocked. They had a shock collar on him, and they would just shock him. They would just relentlessly shock him, and it sounds horrible, but that's what they did. And what they did after this is where the experiment really starts. So they put the dogs into this long corridor, and the floor of the corridor was electrified in the sense that you could press a button and the floor would basically spark, in a sense. And they put dogs A in this corridor, and they had a small barricade in the middle of the corridor. So it was like a little, this much high, like barricade, and the dogs could jump over them. It wasn't so high that they couldn't jump over them. So dogs from Group A, when their floor was shocked, what would they do? Well, of course, they would try to escape, right? So they would run around. Eventually, they'll find the barricade. They'll jump across the barricade and into safety. Makes sense. But the dogs from Group B, they behaved differently. So these dogs were abused, right? These dogs were shocked relentlessly at random. They just accepted pain at this point. So they put the dogs from Group B into that same corridor, and they did the same exact experiment. They shocked the floor. But instead of running around and trying to figure out a solution, essentially figuring out a way to change their behaviors to obtain a better result for themselves, they just sat. They were in pain. It's not like they didn't feel the pain. They felt the pain all right, but they just sat. They just accepted it. They just took it because in their mind, they didn't believe that there was a way out for them. They didn't believe that changing their behaviors would lead to different results. They didn't believe that changing the inputs would change the outputs. And so they just laid there, getting shocked. And now this leaves us in a sad place, doesn't it? Like, what does it teach us? It teaches us that if you're a human being who has gone through a lot in life, if you have been abused in life, if you have just had a lot of losses back to back, and maybe this year was hard for you, then you would be like the dogs in Group B. You'd feel as though no matter what you do, the floor is electrocuted, and changing the inputs isn't going to change that. But here's what the next phase of the experiment did. The experimenters, the scientists, they took those dogs from Group B who were getting shocked, and they physically moved their legs, got them to the barricade, and picked them up and showed them how to jump. And at first this didn't really work, but after a couple reps, the dogs from Group B, they realized that, hey, life doesn't have to be this unending suffering. And they started to escape as well. They started to learn that they could use problem solving, they could use behavior change, and they could jump across the barricade and go to safety. And this is what happened. So in the end of the day, both groups of dogs figured out the puzzle that they could in fact change their inputs and therefore change their outputs. And now, of course, how does this connect with my experiences in Army basic training? Well, here's where it connects. We never had that last phase of the experiment. There was no phase in which the instructors actually taught us how to change our destinies and change our inputs. That just never happened. So we were just the B dogs, we were just the Group B dogs throughout the entire training pipeline. This is what's flawed about the U.S. Army infantry training. I think the Army, this is of course not just true of the U.S. Army, but armies in general. They need to break down the young man. Of course they do. In order to have a competent fighting force, you need young men to be aggressive, strong, resilient, but you also need them to follow orders. Of course you do. Otherwise it's not an organized army, it's a rabble. And to do this, almost every army in the history of mankind will have some kind of training program where they kind of break down the young man and make him obedient to a higher law, the rank, right? When you see the staff sergeant rank on his chest, you do what he says. And of course, it's only training which can accomplish this. The problem with the US Army training is that it's incomplete. The breakdown part does exist. The punishments are random and arbitrary and unfair. That part does exist. So they got that part right, but they did not get the mentorship part right. They don't even have it in some ways. Some drill sergeants are really good though. I will just say that. I'm not trying to dunk on all drill sergeants. I'm just saying a lot of them are just not good at their jobs. So where does this leave me? I'm going to share with you a very cool story. I've never shared this on YouTube before. And it's going to illustrate this concept of behavior change in a way that you'll never forget. And it's through my personal journey, so I saw it with my own eyes. It happened in phases. So what happened was I joined the US Army Infantry. We went to our training platoon. A platoon, for those who don't know, is about 50 to 60 guys. It's a training unit. And it sucked. Like, these guys were untrained, they were undisciplined, they were getting into fights all the time. They couldn't show up at the right time, at the right place, with the right uniform. It was a complete shit show, but it was to be expected considering that these were trainees, right? They're all like a couple weeks into the program, couple months even into the program. But here's the thing. The punishments started, right? The punishments were arbitrary. Like, it was so stupid. I don't even know how to explain it in a way that will make sense for you. Like, imagine that you're in a platoon of 60 guys and you're all kind of segregated, you're all split up, and somebody who you aren't even like in proximity with does something wrong, like maybe his like boot laces were untied or some shit, right? They would call everybody in and punish the whole group. It's like, I was not even a part of this. I had no power over this other guy's boot laces. Why am I getting punished? And this is the intentional arbitrariness designed to break down a person's psyche. So this happened for like weeks and weeks, and we were demoralized. We all wanted to just quit and get out of this stupid place. But something changed, and I saw a glint of hope. So the drill sergeants, there's usually 3 drill sergeants per platoon. They came into our bay. Our bay is just like a barracks essentially. They came into the barracks and they're like, hey, everybody line up. We all lined up, and we thought something bad was going to happen, right? But what they said, they gave us a challenge. For the first time, they gave us a challenge. And I was immediately interested. What they said was, hey, we know that this sucks, but we're going to give you a way out. They said, if you do this challenge and you actually succeed within the time limit that we give you, then you can go to the PX. So PX is kind of a general store. You can buy food, you can buy gear, you can buy all kinds of cool stuff. And they said that we would even get our phones back for a whole day. And we could use this to, contact our families, wives, girlfriends, children, whatever that we had. And everybody really, really wanted this because it's been like months since we ever had any kind of contact with our families and friends. So everybody desperately wanted this. And it was a big carrot dangle. Like, we really, really, it was important that we won this challenge. So what was this challenge? Okay, when I explain this, you're not going to fully appreciate the difficulty of this challenge. So the bunks, right, the beds, the cots, I should say, in army barracks are, what do you call them? Like bunk beds, right? So it's like one bed and then another will be stacked on top of it. And you just have a row of these, like, 50 beds per side. There's the entire barracks is divided into 2 sides, and each side has a row of beds. You can imagine it's like a long ass room, right? And the beds were like this, right? There was a bed, and then another bed, another bed, another bed, and another bed, right? That's how the entire bay was structured. What the drills said was, hey, right now it's structured like bed, 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 bed. What we want you to do is make it bed, 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 bed. Okay, I totally get that that's confusing. I would probably have to draw it out. Give me a second, boys. So how they had it at the start was like this. This is how the barracks usually look, right? This is a cot, and you have like one guy sleeping here, one guy sleeping here, and so on for all of them, right? What they wanted was something that looks like this. It's hard even to draw it. Let's do this. What they wanted was this. So one guy would be sleeping here, and he would have nothing above him. This guy would be here. This guy would be here. And this guy, oh wait, I'm missing something. Up, down, up, down, up. Okay, so I messed it up. See, that's the thing. Like, even in a drawing, I messed it up without realizing, right? So imagine if you actually had to do this for like 50 cots, 100 cots in total. How confusing would it be, right? That's my entire point. Like, it's confusing as hell, even though it doesn't seem that difficult. It was. And you can imagine, you have like almost 50 young guys who all have a chip on their shoulder. They all have something to prove, and they're all aggressive. Of course, they all joined the infantry, so they're wanting to kill, right? And we asked them to do this kind of a complex task. And you got to remember, like, there's like screws and bolts and shit. Like, this cot has to be taken apart and put back together with very limited tools. We only had like these multi-tools, these Gerbers. It's like, how do you coordinate 50 guys to do a somewhat mathematically complex operation without that much tools? It was a genuine challenge. And this is why the drills gave it to us. It's like, hey, if you can figure this out in 30 minutes, then we get this massive reward. So honestly, everybody was hyped, but everybody also kind of knew that this was going to be a challenge. And here is where something really cool happened. I saw an emergent behavior. So everybody, like, none of these guys were dumb. All these guys were smart. They were not dummies. Some of them were dummies. But I'm just saying, like, these guys had common sense at least. So they were like, well, we're not going to succeed if we just rush out and start moving these beds and start unbolting, bolting, unbolting, unbolting. We're not going to succeed, especially not in 30 minutes. So the first 5 minutes, once the drills left, was actually a time of kind of introspection. For the first time in the entire training season so far, all the boys were quiet first off, and they were like, well, we need somebody to organize this. We need a leader who we will just follow his word. What a cool lesson to teach, right? Like, if you think about it from a training pipeline standpoint, what a cool lesson to teach. You don't teach the boys that leadership is important by just telling them that leadership is important. You tell them that leadership is important by giving them a task that only can be solved with a leader in place. And that's an example of pipeline training done well. So shout out to the US Army and shout out to those drills in specific who designed this challenge. So what happened was they looked for a leader. And this is where I came into my own. And it was actually a very proud moment for me. And it doesn't end well. I'll preface that. But I will say that this part was really good. So what the boys did was okay, so I should explain some more context. So at this time, I was the oldest in the platoon because I joined after college, and most of the guys were straight out of high school, right? So I already had like 4 or 5 years about them, and I had more life experience. I was also more fit than any of them. These were just high school kids, right? So I could outlift them, I could outrun them. I was just physically stronger than most of them. Of course, there are some high school studs who would absolutely mog me, but in general, I was at least in the top percentile of strength and for sure experience and age. I think that was more important than strength and size, because of course there were guys bigger than me. And all this to say that the consensus was, well, hey, they talked to me. Could you solve this? Like, they knew that I was educated, right? They at least knew that. They were like, you're smart. Can you do this for us? And I was like, yeah. Give me a second. So I took a sketch pad and I was like, okay, which cots, like these cots are all numbered, right? So all these cots are numbered. I was like, okay, number 1 needs to go here, 2 needs to go here, 3 needs to go here, 4 needs to go here. And so we realized very quickly there's an easy mathematical pattern that we can use to know which cot needs to go where. And I divided the whole platoon into smaller groups, and they could independently work without the knowledge of others. Like, they could work independently. And so I designed the system and said, like, hey, go, I'll just be supervising. I'll just making sure that things are going right. And the boys performed, dude. Like, their boys performed. Within 20 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes, the entire bay was remodeled according to the principles that the drill sergeants wanted. And when the drills came back in 30 minutes, like, kid you not, the head drill, his jaw dropped. He had never seen this done And we were just chilling. Like we finished the task and we were just like loitering around, just chilling, sitting. And they were so surprised. And they said, but like much later on in the pipeline, that this was the first platoon that actually managed to pull this off. And we probably set some kind of record making this task come to life. So here we see essentially the teaching, right? So for all that training period up till this point, we were just punished arbitrarily. There was no reward of any kind, and we didn't feel like we had control over our outputs, our destinies in a way. But now we did. We were faced with the challenge, we succeeded in the challenge, and now we got this reward that we wanted. So we felt like we were in charge, like we could, if we did the right things, we followed the drill's instructions in an appropriate manner, and did so in a timely manner, we were in the right uniform, right place, right time, did the right thing, then we would actually kind of almost have fun. Like it was so fun. We would have fun in basic training. It would be a good time. And so my status in the group was of course elevated, and I was seen as a kind of a de facto leader. And it was a great thing. Now, what happened next, another quick story, was we had an obstacle course. I mean, you can kind of imagine what an obstacle course would look like, especially an army one. It's like a bunch of wooden structures that we had to navigate. If I can find a photo of it, I'll put it on the screen right now. It's an obstacle course. Like has fucking like what do you call them? Monkey bars and like nets and like swinging ropes and like all kinds of balance challenges and shit like that, right? Like stepping stones, like all the things that you can find in an obstacle course. It was there, and what they did was they took the platoon and they split them into two sides. No, it wasn't done like that. The entire platoon was in one place, and they were like, we're going to split you into two factions, and whichever faction does the obstacle course faster, well, you're going to get a special privilege. And I forgot what it was exactly, but it was some reward that we really wanted. If nothing else, at this point, we just wanted to win. Like even the rewards stopped mattering, we just wanted to win. So they started doing it like this. Like every trainee has a roster number, and it's like a number. You're just called a number. The drills don't even know your name. They just know your number. It's like mine was 243. I was on our helmet. Like we'd wear a helmet, and the number would be on the back of the helmet. So 243. So we lined up in the order of our rosters, and they just said like you this side, you this side, you this side, you this side, and they divided the whole platoon into Group A and Group B, kind of like the dogs, Group A and Group B. And then what they did was, I came to the choosing, right? And as soon as they said, hey, you go to Group A rejoiced. Like I saw this in their eyes. Like they were like, yes, right? They physically were like, yes, we got him. And the other group despaired. Like imagine how much this inflated my ego. And this is where the downfall happens. Like if you think that I'm trying to praise myself in this video, trust me, I'm not. I'll get to that part later. So I was feeling really good about myself. I'll just say that. I saw an entire group of guys rejoice at my addition to their team, and I saw another group of guys demoralized because they didn't get me. So of course I felt good about myself, and I should have known. I didn't have the maturity then that I have. I hope I have now. But so who won? Of course my team won. We crushed them, and it was at least in part due to the way I led my team. I divided them into factions. Sorry, not factions, but more like groups, more like squads really. Had different squads do different things. We used tools. We were very smart about it, and we just lapped the other team. It was awesome. Like the drills observed this, and they were impressed too. And then the platoon came together, and it wasn't a problem. Like I continued to maintain a kind of a pseudo leadership position. And okay, and this is where something interesting happened. Our platoon was not the highest ranked. So there's a company. Company is 4 platoons. And our platoon was, I think we were in second platoon, and we were not the highest ranked. So they had a competition. They said, whichever platoon performs the best on this series of challenges, we're going to give the entire platoon all these bonus privileges. We're like, all right, come on, let's go, guys. Second platoon, let's win. And again, the same concept. Like they needed a leader. And at this point, I had proven myself multiple times, so the choice was natural. And I should introduce a new concept. It's called PG. Like PG is platoon guide. It's kind of just like the leader of a platoon. That's all it is. And essentially, once the challenge was made known to us, 4 or 5 guys came to me and they told me like, "Hey, could you just be an acting platoon guide, until we get to this challenge? We'd really appreciate it." And I wanted to do it, so I was more than willing to do it. We got in, and of course we won. Here's something which happened next. The drill sergeants lined up our entire platoon. They got me to the front, and they just relentlessly punished me for like an hour plus in front of the whole platoon. Just humiliating me, just shouting at me, making me do like endless dumb shit. If you've ever seen like basic training footage, you know what it looks like. I don't even want to go into it. I was so pissed off and so demoralized. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought that I was almost doing the drills job for them. I thought that me getting the platoon into shape, getting them these victories, getting them to be cohesive, getting them to work together, I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. I guess not. So these drills I don't want to go into too much, just humiliated me for a long time in front of my platoon. And they basically said that they would not tolerate any kind of leadership going forward. And if they ever caught even a whiff of leadership from anybody, then we would just be absolutely smoked and lose all our privileges and all this stuff. So even though we won the competition, well, we didn't win because they just kind of disqualified us. I was like, what the fuck? What are we doing here? And I completely lost trust in the drills. Oh, I should say, the drills who did this were not the same drills who gave us the cot moving challenge. At some point, the drills had changed out, and we had these new drills. So I was like, what is going on? And I was completely demoralized. And here's where I lost my soul. So as I said, I kind of hinted at this, that all this praise and respect/status that the boys were giving me had gotten into my head. It really had. And so when I lost these privileges and I was humiliated in public by the drills, something dark just welled up inside, and I just flipped. So after that point, I didn't do anything. I was one of the worst trainees probably in the entire platoon, maybe in the entire company. I tried to get out of every duty possible. I didn't put up my head for anything. I was trying to be as distant from everybody as possible. I hated everybody. I hated everything. I lost complete trust in the training program. See, here's the thing, right? Knowing what I know now, I see leadership in a different light. I see now as leadership as a service. The point of leadership isn't to be the big dick. It's not to have status. It's not to have authority over others. That's what I wanted at that time. I was a younger and stupider self. So when this downfall happened, what I should have done is to weather the storm, take the humiliation, but support my fellow man anyway. Support the boys in other ways, even if it was not direct leadership. That's not what I did. Instead, I was a liability to the group. I brought everybody else's morale down by saying, none of this matters, this is stupid, we should not even have joined, like just poisoning the well for myself and others. Not my brightest moment at all. I regret everything after this point in the training pipeline. What's the opposite of a soul? It's ego. You can only choose one. So I was not feeding my soul with these behaviors. With this leadership opportunity, I was actually feeding my ego. I didn't even know it. When we do things to gain status, power, money, women, all this stuff for our own benefit, we are feeding our ego. We are boosting ourselves, or we're inflating our heads. We think we are so good, we're so much better than others. And there's other influencers will actually boost this. I'll give you an example. Andrew Tate, right? He actively says that he is an egotistical person and that he has every right to be because he's so successful. It's like, sure, but is like successful in what? In material things? Like, okay, guy, you're gonna die and you're gonna take nothing with you anyway. And a lot of influencers do this. But what I've learned is feeding of the ego is just poisonous. The soul, on the other hand, is fed by genuine service to mankind. And so if I had taken leadership to mean how can I best serve the other guys in the platoon, then this humiliation wouldn't have mattered so much because I wouldn't have lost anything. But that wasn't the version of me. Like the version of me that exists today was just not there. The first part of this, of earning your soul, is doing these things, earning leadership, earning skills, earning status, earning respect, earning money. All these things you should absolutely do, but you should do this in service of others, not in service to yourself. Otherwise, you're just feeding your ego and certainly not your soul. So with that, boys, let's codify this. Let's write this down. So SOUL. The first is SERVICE. Service before self. That is the first part of our framework. We'll go through the other ones, which are equally important and also has been learned through pain and stupidity. So please take these into account as you go through life. You'll be years ahead. You don't have to make the same mistakes that I did, right? Why would you? So did the dogs from the earlier experiment. The dogs from group B, who would just sit and take the pain, they had gotten something called learned helplessness. They had learned that they were helpless. In other words, they wouldn't move away from pain because they felt as though their actions had no impact on their future. And that's what happened to me. So once I was publicly humiliated, demoted, whatever, I felt helpless. I felt that even though I cared and I wanted to do all these things and lead the platoon, none of this mattered because I would just be punished for it anyway. So I felt as though I was not in control of the outputs, that I might as well not put any inputs because what's the point? So I had learned to be helpless. And what's the opposite of learned helplessness? It's learned resourcefulness. In the dog's example, the scientists literally physically moving the dogs from the shocks to the safety was essentially teaching the dogs resourcefulness. Now, I will bring this military story to a close because, of course, training doesn't last forever. Training is just how you get into the military. After that, you go to your actual unit, and your actual unit, generally speaking, is just way better environment than your training environment is. So once I joined my actual unit, I learned to be resourceful again. So training was shit, and I had nothing good to say about it except for the initial parts. But dude, after I got to my actual infantry unit, these guys were chill. These guys were awesome. These guys had been deployed in the past. These were experienced soldiers. They were good, honest men who actually cared about mentorship, and they taught me a lot about what I know, about leadership, what it actually looks like, what sacrifice looks like. And eventually, the squad that I was in became the best squad in all my company. We were called Team Hot Wheels. And it was awesome. Whenever the company needed something done which was challenging or needed to organize the company or the platoon, what they would do is they'd be like, hey, Hot Wheels, get over here. And me and the other boys of Hot Wheels squad, we would roll up. They would give us the commands. They would give us the commander's intent. And we'd be the one to carry it out. So I kind of got back into a kind of pseudo leadership position, not through authority, but through actually caring and wanting the best for my unit. So I did happily go full circle and kind of regain what I had lost in training, and thereby finding my soul again. Because at this point, I didn't care about leadership for its benefits, for its material benefits, but rather leadership for its more spiritual / intangible benefits, which was actually feeding my soul. So that is what I mean when I say service before self. I forgot to say this in the video, but I think this is really important, so I'm going to record this here and say this now. We're near the end of the year. It's December 17th. There's not a lot of time left. Now is the time to look back on the year and ask yourself, is your physical health where you wanted it to be at the start of the year? Is your physique where you wanted it to be? What about your wealth? What about your career, your education? How are your relationships? And here's the key question, right? if you changed nothing and the trajectory from 2025 carried over to 2026, if you changed none of the behaviors, the same bad habits that you had in 2025 carried over to the next year, well, where would that leave you? Would you be proud, or would you want to change? And the question is, if you wanted to change, then how do you do it? Well, as they say, you change the inputs to change the outputs. And I'll also remind you that everything that you ever wanted in life is on the other side of behavior change. I'm a behavior change specialist. This is what I do for a living. I've helped hundreds of guys, all the way from college students to CEOs of companies, change their lives using behavior change. If you want to get my personalized help, then there is a link in the description below. Go ahead and click on that. There's a 5-minute video which will guide you on what we do. This will close midnight of December 18th. So there's not a lot of time left. So take action now. Go ahead, click that link in the description. And the thing is, you can literally just pause this video right now and take that action. So if you do that, then I hope to see you soon. So with that, we'll go to the second part of the framework, which is going to be way more tactical and way more actionable right now, which is, so in my business, I come in contact with hundreds and hundreds of men, anywhere from 20 years of age to like 45, 50 years of age, everywhere from college students to CEOs of companies. And one thing which doesn't change is the pain of being focused, the pain of choosing one thing over other things and actually making a commitment. This is true because the further you get in life, well, the bigger the opportunities are, and the challenge of cutting them off in order to choose the one thing, that never goes away. And this is actually a scientifically studied concept. It's in I forgot which game it is. It's a card game. I think it's blackjack or something. There's this concept called stick or twist. And I learned this from First Man of all people. And basically the concept of stick or twist is either you can keep the cards that you have, or you can twist and you can get new cards. All right? And this is a concept also seen in the Silicon Valley industries. So these people, they call it stick or pivot. So that's like when you have a startup company and you're building a new software or something and you're constantly getting customer feedback, right? So at some point, some customers are going to want something and another customer avatar is going to want something else. So it's like, should we continue with the initial app idea or should we pivot? So that's another stick or pivot. It's just the same exact thing, but the concept wording is different. So stick or pivot is like, do you stick with what you have or should we go to the new idea? Another way of looking at it in biology, which is my field of study, is called explore exploit trade-off. So that's when an animal is always exploring its environment, right? Let's imagine a tiger. The tiger is prowling around, it's hungry, it sees a goat, right? And the tiger can go and hunt this goat. But the goat's not going to feed it for a long time. The goat's only going to feed it for like a day. So should the tiger go and stalk this goat and eventually go and catch it and eat it, or should it continue exploring and eventually find a deer which can feed it for a week? This is the thing, right? It's like neither option is right or wrong. They're just trade-offs. If you get the goat today, well, that's awesome because you're fed today. If you forego the goat and go for the deer, well, you might get nothing because maybe you don't find a deer. So there's a risk involved as well. So this is called the explore-exploit dichotomy. So where am I going with this and how does this apply to you? One way you lose your soul is by constantly switching priority. All right? So one way you lose your soul is by always you find one thing, you commit to it for like 2 weeks, and then you suddenly discover that the thing which you committed to is actually harder than you thought it was, and then suddenly something else starts shining. And you're like, the second opportunity looks juicy right now, let's go. And then you switch tasks, you switch priority, and you go towards this new thing, and then, well, that becomes hard too, and you keep switching and switching and switching and switching, and before you know it, you've achieved nothing, and you're just left at square one. You have no new skills except just you've wasted a bunch of time, wasted a bunch of resources, and you feel demoralized, dejected. Like, I know this, right? I started so many goofy ass businesses before the one which I have right now, and all of them, like looking at it back, all of them could have succeeded if I committed to them, but I didn't because I didn't know how to commit. I didn't know how to make a trade-off. I didn't understand the value of choosing one ONETHING G. And right now it's kind of theoretical, so I'll make this 100% memorable for you and 100% tactical for you. So after my training and all this stuff, army stuff, I got a really cool job. I got a really cool job at a startup which came out of my university, and it was the actual dream job. This was an engineering company. I was working in marketing, sales, a little bit of product design and things like this. It's a startup. So if you know anything about startups, you get a role designation, but honestly, like you wear whatever hat you need to wear. In a startup, dude, the roles are very fluid. So I was just doing a lot of different things for this company, and it was awesome. I was in direct contact with the CEO. It was a great time, and he was a very smart and intelligent man. His name was Klein, and I let him down. A video that I made on YouTube started to take off. It's that one video of I was Hamza's thinker like 2 years ago, and at this point I had to make a decision. Like, should I go and do YouTube and entrepreneurship full time? And this is a stick or pivot decision. Should I stick with my current job, which is already good, and it's already giving me all these privileges that I wanted, or should I pivot and go towards entrepreneurship, which is far more risky? And just because one video goes viral doesn't mean that you can build a business around it. Of course not. There's so many channels which have one video which goes mega viral, but then just die, and it happens all the time. So I knew this. I wasn't dumb, and I knew that to pivot could be a potential disaster. I could lose the job that I currently have and gain this YouTube channel which doesn't perform. Now, if you're watching this right now, you obviously know what decision I took. So that is an example of a stick or pivot decision. You lose your soul. You lose your soul if you keep pivoting. At some point, you got to stick. Like, imagine if I left my job, started YouTube, and then some other opportunity came my way, and I pivoted again. That would be how you lose your soul, is keep pivoting. This is how people will be stuck in the same place for decades. Don't be this guy. So I let my boss down. I had to leave the company. And this is another key point which I want to make, which is sometimes you let people down and it would be the right decision to do. Like, looking back now, leaving that job and starting YouTube was the right decision long term. But in so doing, I did let a man down who put a lot of trust in me. I do feel guilty about it, but it still was the right decision. So in some places in your life, you can't make everybody happy as much as you want to. Like, the thing is, if you're afraid of letting anybody down and you insist on never letting anybody down, then the only person who you will let down is yourself. At some point, you might have to put your dreams and your vision of you above other people's vision for you. And that can be painful, but it's got to be done. That's what I mean when I say one thing. You have a vision. And my vision was to create a business, a company, and a personal brand which teaches people how to change their lives using behavior change. And that's what we're doing today. I'm teaching you some key frameworks which you'll find very hard to forget, which will change your behaviors. And I genuinely believe that this can change your behaviors and therefore your life. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so here we are, right? Oh, I have a list of failed businesses which I wanted to kind of illustrate. I created a fashion business. Like, I had an LLC. I bought merchandise. I even made my first dollar. I made these robes, which that company never went anywhere. I created a sleep journal. So I was very much into lucid dreaming during this time. So I decided to design a lucid dreamer's journal. That's what I called it. And I wanted to do a Kickstarter and sell like hundreds and thousands of these copies to help people with lucid dreaming. See, the thing is, I could have absolutely started a fashion business. I think it could have worked. I could have absolutely started this journal business. I think it could have worked. And even this YouTube video itself, if you go to my channel right now, you'll see that there's 100 videos. I've published 100 videos over the past 2 years. That's, approximately speaking, a video per week over 2 years. Like, that's commitment, right? That's 2 years of commitment to the craft of making YouTube videos and building my brand. But this is not my first channel. Before this channel which you're watching right now, there was another channel which is called Dark Self-Improvement. And this was a channel which failed in the sense that I closed it down, but it didn't fail in the other sense because I got reps. So if you look at my channel and you're like, okay, I'm 100 videos in. No, I'm not. I'm closer to 200 videos in, and nobody knows this. There's an entire second channel which I was honing my craft, which you don't even know that. You don't even know that. You don't know the reps that I have had to put to make the 100 videos that are on my channel right now. There's even on this channel, there's like 10, 20 videos which you'll never see because they're all privated. So this is my point, right? Many guys who know me from, earlier days of my channel, it looks like an overnight success because my third video that you can see was that Hamza video, and it had like 400,000 views. So it looks as though I made 3 videos and I blew up my channel. It wasn't true. That's an illusion. The truth is I'd made probably close to 50 to 60 videos, and then something blew up and then established my channel. So all this to say, I would have never made that Hamza video if I didn't make those 60 videos prior, which gave me camera presence, if you want to call it that, gave me the confidence to speak. None of those skills would have been in place at the time in which Hamza made his exit video and I jumped in and made my interpretation video, which took off and essentially established my channel as a player in this space. So I had committed to one thing, which was this YouTube channel. And in so doing, I built up the skills required to do what I'm doing now. If I didn't commit to one thing, I wouldn't be here. That is my point, boys. That is my overall point. I hope that the stories help you memorize. This is the thing, right? I could have said this, I could have boiled down this entire concept in like 5 minutes, but you wouldn't have remembered it. But with these stories, you'll never forget it. That's what we're doing here. So now we go to the third section of how to regain your soul, or how to build your soul, or how to find your soul, which is, this is going to be an interesting one, because this is not an experience which I have authority in. In fact, I'm quite flawed in this, so I will look towards history. There was a priest, a Catholic priest in the city of Prague, and his name was Saint John of Nepomuk. You might have never heard of him, and you'll never forget him after you watch this video. So this Saint John, he was not a saint at the time. So the way, okay, I'm not going to go into Catholic lore, but you don't just become a saint. Like, there's a process. They canonically make you a saint. But he wasn't a saint at this point. He was just a regular priest in Prague. And what had happened is, the king of Prague at this time, he was a very, he was an evil man. I'll just say it like that. He was cynical, he was paranoid, he was just a bad person, an evil man. And he suspected his wife of cheating on him. And he knew that his wife had gone to a confessional at the church and confessed something to this priest. So he brings the priest into his castle and asks him, hey, what did my wife confess to you? And the priest was like, well, I can't say because I'm a Catholic priest, and Catholic priests don't break the oath of confession. You're not supposed to say what somebody confessed to you. And the king was like, okay, got it. You have 2 options right now, man. Like, you have 2 options right now. I'm going to beat the shit out of you and make you tell the truth, or I'm going to offer you like gold, jewels, fancy like palace, whatever. You take this bribe and you tell me what my wife confessed, or I'm going to torture you. Now, this man's a Catholic priest. He's psionically trained to withstand pain. And so he said no. And according to some stories, what the king did is he had his torturers, right? His torturers took this priest and they put him through the worst tortures imaginable. And according to some stories, they put his legs in an oven and just, burnt his legs to the point at which his bones came tumbling out. And he didn't break his confessional oath. Can you imagine that? Zooming out, this priest had a certain behavior set, which was do not break the confessional oath. And even through the worst possible torture, he did not break his oath to the Catholic Church, and of course, by extension, to Jesus Christ. Can you imagine that? Like, honest to God, it blows my mind. It blows my mind that a man could resist all the temptation that a kingdom could throw at him, and instead choose torture because of beliefs. It's like, man, I want to be like that. I want to take inspiration from Saint John of Nepomuk. And I'm certainly not even a fraction of the man that this saint was, of course. So this brings us to point number 2, which is UNYIELDING Behvorset. Unyielding behavior set. So what I mean by this is this priest, he had the ultimate temptation and he had the ultimate threat. I think that's a better way of saying it. And he didn't change his behavior set. And think about how weak and how pathetic we are. As soon as we see a hot chick on Instagram, our temptations flare up and we open up websites that we shouldn't be opening up. How disgusting is this? And at the same time, as soon as the slightest pain comes to our life, we yield immediately. This is just not becoming of having a soul. This is what I mean. Like, imagine if this Catholic priest succumbed to the king's temptations. The king was like, hey, I'll give you all the women in Prague. I'm going to give you all this gold and jewels and all this stuff. Go and enjoy. And the priest was like, all right, let's go, let's do this. Then he would have broken his behavior set and he would have lost his soul. But instead, he took on torture of the worst possible kinds and instead kept his soul. That is the extreme example I'm using to demonstrate the concept of unyielding behavior set. Like, judge yourself, compare yourself to the priest from Prague. We are nothing compared to him, and I want to be closer to that. I really want to be closer to that. It's starting to rain. Okay, let's see. Let's see if this threat of rain changes my behavior set of wanting to record this video. Okay, I guess we'll find out, huh? Last point, boys, is a difficult one to make, but I will make it. And I will give you a name. I'll give you a name. I gotta hide my book because it's gonna rain. And the name I'm gonna give you is Andrew Carnegie. And you're like, who's Andrew Carnegie? And that's my key point. Hold up. Okay, there we go. Okay, it's raining heavily now. I don't know if you can see this. Andrew Carnegie was one of the richest men who has ever lived. Andrew Carnegie was $400 billion worth before he died. And this is funny. Oh, I hope my mic doesn't fucking, this gets destroyed. But my point here is, you don't even know who that is, do you? You have never heard of the name Andrew Carnegie. I'm going to hide my Sharpie as well because it's going to get drenched. Hey, you know what they say? If it ain't raining, you ain't training, right? So, okay, I'm getting distracted by the rain. See, this is a threat which is changing my behavior set, and I won't have it. So let's go back and let's be focused on this video. Andrew Carnegie owned U.S. Steel. And if you're like, what is U.S. Steel? Almost every single railroad in the United States from coast to coast was made of U.S. Steel. Every single skyscraper, at least the older ones, you see in New York City are built of U.S. Steel. Andrew Carnegie was the man who built U.S. Steel. He came out of nothing. He was just an iron worker. And he built this massive industry out of nothing in the United States. He is a pioneer. And you don't even know his name. Am I wrong? Like, you probably heard his name. Maybe if you know of the Carnegie Mellon University, you've heard his name, but you don't know who Andrew Carnegie was. And my point here is simply this, that even a man such as Andrew Carnegie, who just lived 100 years ago, that's just only 3 to 4 generations ago, and you don't even know who that is. So, do you think you will be remembered after you die? You will not. When life ends, so will you, and you will have nothing at the end of it. So all these egotistical things, money, women, fame, status, the houses that you own, they will be ash in your mouth if you don't live in service to mankind. This is my promise to you. The very first point I made was leadership for the service of mankind. But not just leadership, but everything that we do should be in the service of mankind, or the plants and animals that live around us, which are our brothers and sisters. So, I want to quickly open my book because I think I'm forgetting some key points. And if you watch this far, then I'm going to assume that you are willing to wait for 2 more seconds as I pull this up. I'm starting to shiver because this rain is cold, but that's okay. I just hope my notebook doesn't get destroyed. Give me a second, boys. Give me a second, boys. Give me a second, boys. No! The pages are getting glued together. Right. So, my big point here being, you can choose one or the other to feed your ego or feed your soul. And my final point, which I cannot write because my board is literally wet right now, is that life will end. I'll try writing it, but I don't think it'll work. Yeah, I can't. So my fourth point, which I cannot write, is that life will end. Life will end, boys. And this is a good thing. And it's a good thing because if you think about it, as soon as life ends, a lot of your burdens also end. If you can live a life with which your judgment and your creator's judgment both agreed that it was a good life, and you've lived in service to things bigger than you, then you have won at life. Even if you made $0, even if you had 0 women, even if you had 0 status, if your judgment of your life and your creator's judgment of your life said that you had a soul, if you lived with purpose, if you lived in service of others, then you have succeeded. And with that, I'll close out. Hey, we're at the end of the video. I hope you've learned something which changes your behaviors. I want to just remind you that there's a link in the description below, which if you click that, you'll learn what I do. You'll learn what I do. And you might be able to get personalized help with me. This link closes at midnight on December 18th. So there's only like 48 hours left, if that. And hey, I hope to see you soon. I really do. So take action and make this an opportunity that you don't miss.